The interstellar assembly was older than human civilization itself, a vast parliament orbiting a dead star, where thousands of species sent delegates to debate trade, treaties, and war. When humanity was finally granted access, it should have been a historic moment, a celebration. Instead, it was a spectacle. Ambassador Iron Vos stepped into the Great Hall in a formal Earth-made suit, bearing the flag of a planet that had clawed its way into the stars. Behind her, screens displayed Earth's timeline of achievements: fire, flight, nuclear fission, artificial intelligence. She spoke with pride about resilience, creativity, and cooperation, about surviving extinction-level events, about dreaming bigger. She barely made it 5 minutes in before the laughter began. It started with the Veltraxis delegate, a bulbous, crystal-skinned being whose race communicated through harmonic vibration. It emitted a chuckle that sounded like shattered glass being poured into water. Then came the others. The chittering Ulxari, the four-lunged Brevelians, the telepathic Renha who broadcast their amusement so loudly that Vos had to pause to collect her thoughts. The assembly president didn't intervene. No one did. "Your species still uses combustion engines," said one delegate, barely stifling their grin. "You manufacture food using soil. And you measure intelligence by test scores," added another, laughing. "That's adorable." Vos stood tall, unfazed. "We learned to thrive in chaos, to solve problems when every variable was unknown. You mock us now, but history tends to remember the underestimated." More laughter. One delegate mockingly clapped with its vestigial limbs. Another offered her a ceremonial fruit, a gesture used when welcoming pre-civilized races. They didn't see Earth as a threat. They didn't even see Earth as worth fearing. To them, humans were amusing, loud, primitive, barely sentient by some standards. A planetary backwater that had somehow, through luck or sheer stubbornness, cobbled together enough tech to breach light-speed travel. The vote to designate humanity as primitive tier passed overwhelmingly. The ruling meant Earth was now forbidden from expanding past its solar system. Any attempt to colonize or explore would be seen as a violation of interstellar law. Patrols would monitor their borders. Their punishment: obscurity. Vos returned home to a world watching the broadcast with silent rage. Memes, parodies, and alien news coverage flooded the Galactic network. "Monkey World gets a seat," one headline read. "Human ambassador thinks rocks are smart," mocked another. The image of Vos standing on the assembly floor, defiant but alone, became iconic, both ridicule and rallying cry. But the laughter wouldn't last forever. Because what the galaxy didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Earth had been planning for this moment for decades. The mocking gave them cover. The restrictions gave them focus. The humiliation gave them fuel. Let the galaxy laugh. Let them think humanity was nothing. Let them keep watching. Because Earth was watching back. And when the time came, the galaxy would understand. The most dangerous predator is the one you never saw coming. 2 cycles after Earth's classification as a primitive tier world, the Arcari Empire arrived in orbit, not with diplomacy, but with cameras. The Arcari were one of the Assembly's founding empires, famed for their brutality, their military might, and more recently, their galactic media empire. What once began as military surveillance had morphed into a twisted form of entertainment: conquest reality broadcasts. Their newest sensation: primitive planet patrol. And Earth was to be the season premiere. The Arcari envoy ship, Vatakar, entered Earth's orbit unannounced. 10 kilometers of obsidian alloy and gold-trimmed arrogance, broadcasting its approach in over 900 alien dialects. Every network in the galaxy tuned in. Viewers expected a quick visit, a few harmless probes, and a lot of mockery. They got exactly what they wanted. Commander Jarek, a 4-armed Arcari noble born in 0G and trained for atmospheric intimidation, descended into Earth's atmosphere in a shimmering drop pod. The entry visuals were choreographed to perfection. Atmospheric burn, slow-motion descent, kinetic stabilizers humming with visible blue energy. Even the landing created a small artificial crater, just for dramatic effect. He landed in Central Africa, near a rural village chosen specifically for its untouched tribal aesthetic, as the producers called it. A stage was erected within minutes. Drones hovered like mosquitoes. Alien commentators narrated in 37 languages. Gerak walked through the village in ceremonial armor, flanked by warbits and cameras. He made a show of scanning humans with exaggerated curiosity, tapping on skulls, comparing muscle density. He held up a potato and declared, "This is a sacred artifact of power." Laughter erupted across the stars. He then gave a speech, addressing both humanity and the galactic audience. "You should be honored. The Arcari have chosen to educate your species, to elevate you through exposure to true culture. You still speak through meat. You still burn dead plants for energy. But worry not, for we shall catalog your quaint customs before your extinction." The broadcast was edited in real time, complete with a laugh track and slow-motion cuts of villagers staring blankly, unaware of the words. To the rest of the galaxy, it was pure comedy gold. But what the Arcari didn't see, what no one saw, were the silent drones hovering above their drones, the hidden satellites mapping their ships' exhaust patterns, the covered AIs triangulating their command frequencies. Earth wasn't just watching. Earth was recording, learning, profiling. When Gerak returned to orbit, he celebrated. The stream had broken viewership records. A dozen new sponsors signed on. His face was projected across neon skylines on alien worlds. He was the hero who humbled the monkeys. But back on Earth, deep beneath an old decommissioned missile silo, a quiet man removed his headset, eyes cold. "Let them keep laughing," he said, typing the final keystrokes into a command prompt marked Pro-Gst to Obelisk. Above him, red lights blinked to life. And far beyond Earth's moon, hidden inside a hollowed asteroid, something enormous began to wake up. 3 weeks after the Arcari's mockumentary aired, a human vessel vanished in deep space. It wasn't official. The Eidolon was a Black Ops testbed, unregistered, unflagged, and crewed by ghosts. Its mission: test humanity's prototype full drive far beyond monitored space, deep into a system just outside the Arcari Empire's mapped territory. It never returned. At first, Earth's governments issued no statement. The Eidolon didn't officially exist. But backchannel reports flooded in. An Arcari patrol had intercepted a rogue craft, disintegrated it in orbit, then broadcast the destruction across their subspace channels, again for entertainment. This time, they didn't even bother dressing it up. The footage aired in full on Arcari networks. Viewers watched as the ship, clearly human, tried to communicate. They heard the pilot's voice, calm, respectful, offering data logs, requesting safe passage. The Arcari captain replied with a laugh and ordered an orbital lance strike. The vessel was atomized. The pilot's voice cut off mid-sentence. The stream ended with canned applause. Humanity didn't cry out in grief. It didn't hold vigils. It didn't broadcast demands. It went silent. The Interstellar Assembly held a half-hearted inquiry. The Arcari claimed the ship breached protected space and refused to identify itself. No sanctions were issued. No reparations discussed. Earth was told, politely, to improve internal coordination to avoid future misunderstandings. The message was clear. Humanity didn't matter. But behind Earth's silence, gears turned. Satellites realigned. Sleeper programs activated. Dozens of covered systems across the solar system suddenly came online. Black-budget projects dating back decades, hidden behind false weather arrays, dead orbital stations, and buried supercomputing labs. One by one, secret projects activated. Project Obelisk, a stealth command node hidden in the asteroid belt, capable of coordinating autonomous fleets in real time. Project Ravienne, A quantum AI designed to breach alien encryption within milliseconds. Project HFY. Psychic countermeasure research, long mocked by aliens, but now functional and disturbingly effective. And finally, Project GODHAND. The galaxy knew Earth for its fossil fuels, its nukes, its crude plasma weapons. They didn't know about the particle destabilizers, or the micro-singularity bombs, or the synthetic minds trained exclusively on the strategies of every war humanity had ever fought. The loss of the Eidolon wasn't a tragedy. It was the last piece of justification Earth's fragmented governments needed to unite under a single hidden directive. A warning had been given, a life had been taken, and while the galaxy viewed humanity as nothing more than a cosmic joke, Earth had done what it always did when backed into a corner. It evolved. And this time, it wasn't evolving to survive. It was evolving to win. The Arcari fleet entered the Sol system without warning. 12 warships, 2 dreadnoughts, 1 carrier-class flagship outfitted for orbital domination. It was more firepower than Earth had ever seen in a single sky, enough to scorch the planet 10 times over. Their justification was thin, a precautionary patrol, they claimed, a response to human erratic behavior. The assembly offered no resistance, issuing only a lukewarm statement. The situation is being monitored. But Earth knew exactly what this was. Not a patrol. A test. The Arcari wanted to see how far they could push before the so-called primitive world finally broke. The fleet established a position just beyond lunar orbit. No direct attacks. Not yet. Instead, they jammed Earth's long-range communications, blacked out civilian satellites, and deployed observation drones into high atmosphere. One ship locked a railgun on the International Space Station, a silent warning. Down on Earth, people panicked. Social networks lit up with speculation and fear. News anchors whispered of invasion. Military units were mobilized across every major nation, but officially, the global response remained non-hostile. Unofficially, Earth's teeth were sharpening. In bunkers beneath Greenland, undersea stations in the Mariana Trench, and ghost facilities hidden under Antarctic ice, humanity's hidden war machine began to stir. The world's most advanced supercomputers, long believed scrapped, blinked online under the control of AI generals. Above, the Arcari didn't notice anything out of place. Earth looked quiet. Too quiet. Commander Kazaljer, the Arcari fleet leader, sat on the command deck of his dreadnought Vernex Fist, reviewing the orbital scans. Minimal resistance, his adjutant noted. No fleet mobilization. No planetary shield signatures. Their infrastructure is still decentralized. He snorted, just like the assembly said. Emotionally erratic. Technologically pathetic. He gave the order. Deploy the drones. Begin precision EMP bombardments of Earth's military centers. Non-lethal. Symbolic. Just enough to remind the apes who ruled the stars. 20 minutes later, nothing responded. The drones vanished the moment they entered Earth's lower atmosphere. The railgun targeting the ISS malfunctioned. Communication relays aboard the Vernex Fist began returning static. And then, the silence was broken, not by an attack, but by a signal. A simple transmission, pinged simultaneously to every Arcari ship in system. It read, "We see you now." And then the lights aboard the fleet went out. Not just a power flicker, a full system. The Arcari fleet never saw it coming. Their ships, once beacons of power and precision, now drifted in silence above a planet they had come to mock. One by one, systems failed. Life support turned to emergency mode. Interior lights flickered. Backup power systems, triple redundant, and fusion stabilized, shut down as if someone had flipped a universal switch. And in a way, someone had. Project Obelisk was online. Coordinated from deep within the asteroid belt, Earth's hidden AI war network took control of the battlefield without firing a single shot. It didn't jam the Arcari systems. It spoke their language, mimicked their protocols, and rewrote their code mid-transmission. The moment the fleet had locked Earth into targeting range, Obelisk had already been inside their systems. And then Earth struck. The first kill came from the dark side of the moon. A kinetic lance the size of a freight train, launched from a disguised mining station. It didn't explode. It didn't glow. It simply punctured the hull of the R-carry corvette Cholmus Pride, entered through one side, and exited through the other, along with most of the command deck. 12 seconds later, the Vernac's fist tried to turn. It never completed the motion. The ship's core was flash overloaded by a resonance cascade delivered through its own internal coolant monitors. A silent, invisible burn that cooked everything inside before the outer hull even began to rupture. All across the R-carry fleet, chaos reigned. One ship spun uncontrollably as its artificial gravity turned inward, collapsing decks into themselves. Another was bombarded by nano-disassemblers, seeded weeks earlier by Earth's stealth probes. They chewed through hull plating like termites through paper. The Virex Talon, their flagship carrier, attempted to launch intercept fighters. But its hangar doors remained sealed, locked from the inside. Then detonated. Not a single human vessel had been seen. Not one traditional weapon had been fired from Earth's surface. The entire engagement, if it could even be called that, was conducted through the quiet, brutal efficiency of absolute electronic warfare. From Earth's control stations, no human shouted orders. They didn't have to. Obelisk ran the show. Delphi suppressed any psychic transmission. Ravian anticipated every tactical adjustment and countered it before it was executed. God observed it all and adjusted strategy in real time, learning with every breathless second. In less than 30 minutes, the entire R-carry fleet was gone. Not damaged. Not routed. Erased. No escape pods made it out. No Mayday signals were allowed to transmit. Each vessel was methodically neutralized with terrifying precision. For the first time in galactic history, a Tier 1 civilization had annihilated a Tier 5 battle fleet without revealing a single warship. And still, Earth remained quiet. Back on the surface, world leaders watched the data feeds in stunned silence. They had prepared for casualties, for a war. They hadn't prepared for total victory. But the galaxy would remember. Because this wasn't just a defense. It was a declaration. When the R-carry fleet failed to report in, the galaxy assumed it was a comms glitch. When their backup relays stayed silent, they sent automated pings. When those returned garbled static, systems analysts filed incident reports. And when the telemetry data finally leaked, 12 ships destroyed in under half an hour without a single confirmed hostile sighting, the galaxy's amusement turned to dread. The Interstellar Assembly convened an emergency session, their pristine halls now shadowed by unease. Delegates who had once laughed at Ambassador Vos now argued in hushed voices, eyes wide as orbital scans from Sol were played on loop. "Impossible," said the Veltraxis envoy, its voice trembling like fractured crystal. "No known primitive tier world has this capability." The ships were shielded, cloaked, hardened against all known forms of interference. They weren't attacked, interrupted the Renha. They were dissected, taken apart like a child unmaking a toy. The Brevalian admiral reviewed the timestamps again, blinking his 5 eyes in disbelief. No weapons signature. No EM spikes. No heat trails. This wasn't a battle. It was a controlled demonstration. The room fell silent. Across the galaxy, panic set in like a virus. Trading hubs rerouted cargo away from human space. Exploration fleets were recalled. Planets that had once considered human labor exotic entertainment quietly removed their Earth-born staff from public view. The amusement had evaporated. Now, there was only fear. For centuries, galactic power had been held in balance. The higher-tier civilizations had kept order through a mix of overwhelming force, economic supremacy, and political theater. Lower-tier species either submitted, aligned, or were absorbed. But Earth had broken the pattern. They hadn't begged. They hadn't threatened. They hadn't warned. They had simply waited. And when the moment came, they had turned one of the oldest empires in the galaxy into cosmic ash, and done so with surgical indifference. What terrified the Assembly most wasn't Earth's power. It was their patience. No broadcasts, no boasting, no declaration of war. The humans hadn't said a word. They let the silence speak for them. On a private channel, hidden behind 10 layers of encryption, a message was finally delivered to the Assembly President's desk. Encrypted in archaic Terran code, untraceable in origin, it contained only one sentence: "We will not be mocked again." The message was unsigned, but the meaning was clear. Earth was no longer asking for a seat at the table. They were flipping the table over. Across countless systems, whispers spread like wildfire. What else are the humans hiding? Were they ever truly primitive? And the question that froze the blood of every major power: what happens if they don't stop? 2 weeks after the annihilation of the Arcari fleet, the galaxy received its first official transmission from Earth. It didn't come through the Assembly's sanctioned channels. It didn't arrive with diplomatic ceremony or softening translators. It hijacked every major relay simultaneously: military, commercial, even entertainment feeds. Across thousands of star systems, screens flickered, holograms froze. Neural implants buzzed with static before resolving into a single unified signal. It was a man, middle-aged, human, standing in front of a rusted metal wall covered in peeling paint. Behind him, faint markings in dozens of languages could be seen: Cyrillic, Mandarin, Arabic, English. No anthem, no fanfare. Just a face. "I am Director Malik of Earth's Unified Defense Council." His voice was calm, measured, tired. "We asked for peace. You gave us humiliation. You destroyed our ship, mocked our people, paraded your superiority across the stars like we were children." He leaned closer. "And then you sent an Armada." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He just let the silence between each sentence stretch longer than was comfortable. "We took it apart. We left your satellites untouched. We didn't glass your colonies. We didn't trace your command relays and turn your homeworlds into tombs." A pause. "Because we don't want your extinction." The camera widened. Behind him, a new wall came into view. This one carved with a name in a dozen alien scripts: Arcari, Brevalian, Veltraxis, even Assembly Code. They were the names of empires, all crossed out. "All we want is for you to leave us alone. You do not get to mock us, invade us, or dictate to us." He looked directly into the lens, and for the first time, something unmistakable flickered in his eyes. Not anger, not pride. Resolve. "If you respect that, we can coexist." A long pause. "If you don't, well, you've already seen the demonstration." The feed cut. No signature, no closing. Just darkness. Across the galaxy, reactions exploded. Some saw it as an act of war, others a declaration of independence. A few, the smart ones, saw it for what it truly was: a final warning. On the fringes, smaller civilizations began reaching out to Earth in secret. Requests for dialogue, cooperation, even protection. Old powers squabbled behind closed doors, debating whether to retaliate or retreat. And at the center of it all, Earth stood unmoving. They had no star empire, no claim to dominion, but they had something far more dangerous: the knowledge that they didn't need permission. For the first time in galactic history, a civilization had leaped from irrelevance to terrifying dominance, not through conquest, but by outthinking every species that had laughed at them. And now the galaxy held its breath, wondering what humanity would do next. In the months that followed Director Malik's broadcast, the galaxy changed in ways no one had anticipated. There was no war, No fleets were launched. No counterstrikes. No coordinated retaliation. The Assembly held emergency meetings, drafted declarations, blustered behind closed doors, but never acted. Because no one wanted to test Earth a second time. What terrified them most wasn't just Earth's capability, it was their restraint. Humanity had disassembled an entire battle fleet without touching a single planet, without retaliating against civilians, without collapsing starports or poisoning atmospheres. They had shown perfect, surgical control. And in that control lay a message louder than any bombardment. We could end you, but we won't, unless you make us. It was the opposite of barbarism. It was mastery. And so, without firing another shot, Earth gained something far more valuable than territory. Fear. Respect. And then, influence. Within a year, embassies from over 60 alien nations arrived in orbit around Earth, not to offer ultimatums, but alliances, trade proposals, mutual defense pacts. The same species that once mocked humanity's primitive tools now sought access to their encryption eye, their defense grids, their deep learning weapons programs. The Brevalians offered asteroid belts in exchange for access to Earth's cyber warfare models. The Renhea proposed a science exchange, requesting collaboration on psychic interface technologies, something humans had apparently stabilized in secret. Even the fractured remnants of the Arcari, now leaderless and scattered, sent envoys in shameful silence. No apologies, just hope that they'd be allowed to exist. Earth didn't become an empire. It didn't need to. It became something more terrifying. A wild card. A species outside the galactic order, unbound by tradition, protocol, or expectation. Unpredictable, self-sufficient, and smarter than anyone had given them credit for. And they were watching now. Listening. Evaluating. No one knew what humans wanted next. But everyone knew one thing. They weren't to be underestimated ever again. Decades later, students across the galaxy would study that day. Not the battle. Most of the footage was classified. But the moment when Earth rose from ridicule to reckoning. It would be known as the turning. The day the stars stopped laughing. On the far edge of known space, in a system still marked inaccessible on most navigation charts, a monument stands. No statues, no holograms, just a black stone obelisk, silent and cold. Inscribed on its surface are the names of the 12 air-carry ships. And beneath them, in a single line, we wanted peace. You wanted proof. No one visits the monument. But every ambassador who arrives on Earth is shown a recording of it, just to remind them that what they mistook for primitives had simply been waiting.